Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Check Me Out. And if you're feeling a little bit of a brain fog or you haven't had your morning coffee, then we've got an alternative for you this morning because I'm very fortunate to be talking to a lovely friend Chanel from Arepa. Good morning.
Morning.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to have a chat with us. This is one that I've been really looking forward to doing because Arepa is such an amazingly innovative product, and also knowing being able to talk to somebody who is, and looking after the marketing for such an innovative product is, I think, going to be super valuable for everybody. So thank you so much.
No, happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's start right from the top. Can you give, for people in the back who haven't heard about Arifa, which is not a lot of people, can you tell us a little bit about what the brand is and about the drink itself?
Yeah, so as a brand, we're a brain food technology company. That's sort of where we identify ourselves as. I think when we first launched, we were very much playing in the nootropic space, which was sort of anything that helped elevate your brain function. And then, interestingly enough, I suppose as we've got bigger, we've sort of tried to run away from the category of nootropics where we first thought we fit. And this is really because I suppose as the brand evolved, we realized that the space that we were playing in didn't really fit us anymore. We were kind of creating our own category, which is obviously both a blessing and a curse. It's cool to sort of be innovative and lead in a category that's never been created before, but it's also terrifying because there's no one really to look at what they've done and be like, oh, cool, like we'll copy them. They've already done it. So yeah, that's been super interesting. But I suppose the base of the product that we sell the most is our brain drinks. So we've patented the formula, which is super exciting. We worked with the world's leading neuroscientists to create the product as well. And the product works. We use three key ingredients. So neuroberry black currants. So if anyone knows about the purple food diet, black currants are really good at helping oxygenate the blood. So the more blood flow you can get to the brain, obviously, the better your brain functions. We also use pine bark extract. So in high dosages, pine bark extract is used for concussion recovery or traumatic brain injuries. It's also a natural alternative to Ritalin. So that's been quite exciting for us because we've got a lot of anecdotal evidence from people who suffer from ADHD, both adult and children's, able to use our product either to supplement their medication or they've been able to completely come off their medication and use us as well. And then our third key ingredient is L-theanine, which is the amino acid from green tea. So really good if you're feeling super stressed out or anxious, it kind of just calms you down.
Amazing. And it's all and by the way, it also tastes really good. I'm a massive fan of the calming one. Being a creative brain, my brain is always on the go. So quite often if I'm in the shopping, I'll like grab a couple of the calming drinks and take them home for when I really need them. So that's awesome. As you talked about the fact that Arepa's put itself into its own category, at what sort of point did you kind of realize that, the nootropics weren't really fitting you guys, and you were like, okay, maybe we need to create our own space? And what was it like to really look at creating that own space from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I would say a lot of the thought about that had happened probably before I came on board from a marketing side. It was sort of the boys starting to realize that, yeah, that category wasn't really serving us anymore. And I would say one of the key reasons behind that was because a lot of brands were jumping into that category with essentially no clinical testing, no trials done, no science-backed evidence, we're the only product we're the only drink in the Southern Hemisphere that's clinically tested and proven to the level that we are. So we sort of felt that, putting ourselves in a category where other people weren't even doing anywhere near what we were doing was actually sort of worse off for our brand when we could just kind of create our own category. And I suppose, the benefit of creating your own category is if other people want to identify themselves as that, then they have to be compared to what you're already doing. So it sort of just allowed us to elevate the brand, elevate our standards, elevate why we think it's important to do what we do. And then, yeah, just really create that sense of like, this is what we're trying to achieve. And if others want to compete with that, then, you need to be up at that level.
Yeah, awesome. And you talked about the why, and I'm sure the boys have got like started with the brand also have their own why. But what's your why with Arifa? What kind of gets you up and going and wanting to go and work on this brand every day?
Yeah, I think for me, personally, like I'm very purpose driven, I'm very ambitious. So working for a product and a company that is genuinely trying to change people's lives is really what I guess fuels me every day. Like we get customer feedback from people who are saying, I had suffered from COVID and I had brain fog for 1 year or 3 years and I haven't been able to concentrate, or I've got chronic fatigue and I found your product and now I can function or I can get through meetings. And it's not always, the big stories of like, oh, you guys helped me, do an exam or get through a presentation. It's people who are just like, your product has allowed me to get out of bed. Your product has allowed me to function throughout the day without questioning myself or being riddled with anxiety. So it's like those kind of stories. It's like from a marketing point of view as well as a personal point of view, when you're getting that kind of feedback, it's so hard to not be passionate about what you do, because every single day we are proving that we are genuinely impacting people's lives and helping make their brains work better, which is our whole mission.
100%. And that is just goes along. Obviously, it's a business and the business has to make money. But I think, speaking from myself, as well as being in a business where you get to genuinely help people succeed in what they want to do in life, it's just as good as being paid. In fact, sometimes it's better. So that's really awesome. Now, obviously, with an innovative product going into a new category, there's a lot of education that is needed for people to really understand the benefits of what you guys are doing. So I would imagine, when it comes to marketing, what kind of things have you been doing to really make it easy for your consumers to understand the beverage, the actual, the benefits?
Yeah, I suppose from a marketing point of view, this has been really interesting. Specifically a way to like how we figure out how to educate people, because it's all fun and games to say like, oh, we know what our product does, we know what the benefits are, but trying to tell that to people in a way that's informative. We've got so much science in our product, but people aren't jumping on our Instagram to read the science behind how your brain functions, or from a molecular level or cellular level. So it's been really interesting to kind of find what the happy medium is for people to be able to educate what our product does, but in a way that doesn't sound condescending, doesn't compare what they've already been doing to what we think they should be doing, because then they'll feel like we're pointing out that they've failed at something. But then also just figuring out what our tone of voice is like for that kind of content. So we always say that we're like your scientist turned life coach. So we're motivating, we're informative, we're there for you when we need us. We'll always have the information on hand, but we're not going to shove it down your throat or make you feel like you've done something wrong. It's more of just educating why we could be a better option, say, instead of a coffee or instead of a Red Bull, or if you're feeling stressed out at 4 o'clock, like don't go and have a double shot of espresso, maybe reach for us instead. So yeah, that's been really interesting, and we're definitely still learning, because we do get some people just want to know, oh, it's good for my brain, sweet. Some people want to know what the benefits of the ingredients are. And then we do get the people who, I don't know, maybe they have a science degree or they're studying at uni and are a little bit more interested or pursuing a career in, clinical science or anything like that. So we've got varying levels of education that we try to provide to serve most. That's not to say we get it right all the time. There's still, people wanting more or less and still asking questions. But yeah, I guess it's a journey of figuring out where that happy medium is and what works for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there certain platforms? I know that, like, there's obviously, we live in a very digital heavy environment these days for marketing products. Are there certain platforms where you might find, say, more of one particular customer than the other? And do you sort of target your messaging across each of those, or is it sort of more of a general kind of feel?
I would say at the moment it's more general. That's not to say that we wouldn't be, I guess, changing what we do platform specific, but like a lot of our success we have on Instagram. And I think it's because the format of Instagram, it's easy to digest, it's super social, people can DM us straight away. Like we always get, we get more DMs than we do emails some days, because people are like, oh, I just picked you up in Coles. I got a question about this, or I saw you at Woolies or Pack and Save. So while we're looking at doing maybe further down the line, like more platform specific based on the kind of education people are after, I think at the moment it's working really well for us just to approach that generally. But that's not to say like, we're working with, say, the University of Auckland and, people who are studying, Center of Brain Research or anything like that, obviously for them, we'll just dish them, they want to read the clinical studies, they want to read the trials, the stuff that I feel like I need an Arepa to understand even. So like it's very, very different based on like, where we're trying to reach, I'd say.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Now, I know that you guys also do a lot of sort of what would be considered non-traditional ways of getting and, like of helping people out. And it's not necessarily a marketing tactic, but more of a just an added on service. And particularly the one I noticed that you guys do the Brothers Brain, I think it's called, meetings where you have men.
Brothers Brain Chat. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is, can you tell us a little bit about those kind of things that you're doing?
Yeah, I suppose that was something. So when I came on board last year, I guess just for context, like we hadn't really done marketing before. Like we'd done marketing activities, but marketing as a function didn't exist for the brand. So I sort of came on as the first marketing hire, tried to like figure out what we'd done, what worked, what relationships we had, that sort of thing. And one of the ones that was really exciting to see was that we had a relationship with Zane Munro from For All the Brothers.
Mhm.
And it's a men's mental health account. So I reached out to him. And I mean, like I said earlier, our whole mission is to make brains work better and help people realize how they can do that. So for us, yes, we produce this product that can do that, but we're also all about providing experiences that allow people to come and help their brains work better. So if we can do that through community events, initiatives, those sort of things, like for us, that's a bigger win than getting drink in hand, because then you're providing a customer with an experience, and then maybe, they've come to a yoga morning or they've come to a Brothers Brain Chat, and the next time they see us in a supermarket and they're like, oh, that was that brand that had that event that I went to, and it was amazing for me, or I learned something. Or so I guess from a marketing point of view, like, yes, those are marketing initiatives, but for us they're bigger than that. It's more around like putting our money where our mouth is and showing that we do genuinely believe providing these experiences educates people far better than just saying like, oh, you should have our drink because this is amazing for you.
I think that's really neat. And I've noticed there are a lot of, well, not a lot, there are people that are now like other companies in New Zealand. I mean, Girls Get Off is a really good example, who are, yes, they sell a product, but it also become, they're also all about what they do. And I think that's a really exciting space for people to play in, is to go, yes, we do create a product, but as you say, you guys are not a product business. You're an innovative business. And I think by looking at that, we're going to see some really exciting things, and people like, that are kind of going to fall into that space as well, in their own categories outside of, what you guys are doing. And I think it's quite neat to see. It's like to actually truly live more so than just what you're putting on a supermarket shelf.
And I always think too, like from a marketing point of view, if our brand disappeared off shelf tomorrow, right? If for some, I don't know, post-apocalyptic, or, suddenly we couldn't grow blackcurrants anymore or whatever, if the products disappeared off shelf, then what are people left with? And if you're not, as a brand, and I mean, this is any brand in my opinion, not just FMCG, but if you can provide an experience and build out a community around a product that you do or a service, I think that's so much more powerful. Because yes, like it's great that we can tie our product into these events, but that's never why we're doing them. So I think like it's so valuable for people to realize, like, if you can bring people together who not necessarily know about your product but believe in what you're trying to achieve, the impact that has lasts so much longer than selling the product on the shelf at a special or something.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so good. And along the way, obviously, you say you started in the company, like they were sort of a part way through their journey, and they've, Arifa's experienced like an amazing amount of growth into other countries and stuff like that. I've seen the amazing billboards in the US, and that looks so neat. What was it like to kind of jump midway through a startup and kind of just, I guess, or it's like halfway through a relay race and grab a baton and start running with it, everyone?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely trial by fire, I would say. I was sort of, when I came on board, there was only about 5 people in the team. I was the first hire that like wasn't a friend of the company as well. So I mean, like, talk about pressure.
Yeah.
But it was super exciting because when I got hired, we also did a bit of a mass hire, I suppose, because we were realizing that the business did need to start growing. And with that, we did need more resource. So I think I was one of about 10 people that got hired within 3 to 6 months. So it wasn't just me stepping on board as new, it was a whole bunch of people. But I think it's always cool when that happens because it kind of just gives you time to evaluate what's been done, what you want to do, and then like where we're trying to go. So I remember a lot of the first probably 6 months to a year of my role was just trying to figure out the direction that we wanted to be in and how we were going to get there. And I mean, that's always easier said than done because in between figuring that out, it's still business as usual, you know? So it was still sort of trying to execute on events, do our first big out of home campaign, figure out what our marketing budget looked like, figuring out what these community initiatives looked like, you know, even just figuring out how we could, I guess, develop as a brand for Kiwis, you know? So like we always love to think that everyone knows about us, but the reality is like not everyone does, you know? We could still do trade shows and some people have never heard about us. We could be at a market and some people don't know. So it's still, I feel like there's always more to do. Like a lot of people will look at us and be like, oh, you guys are everywhere, everyone knows about you. And it's like, that's great that that's the general sentiment. But from me, for a marketing point of view, like I will never stop pushing what we do because I know there's people out there who still don't know about us.
Yeah, there's always people, like there's always so much learning to go on with and like you say, even though we're a team of 5 million in New Zealand, that's still, you know, it's still 5 million people that you've got to talk to, and it's like going around individually talking to those people, whether it's, you know, in person or on a shelf or online. It's a, if you try to talk to one person, 5 million people, it would take you a long time. So looking at breaking it down to that, it may feel like we're in a small country, and like you say, you know, you are relatively big in New Zealand standards and people do know you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody does. So that's cool.
And I suppose like it's been interesting too, because I mean, we use Tracksuit for our brand tracking, which has been amazing. So even then we've got actual data to see what our brand awareness is in market, what our consideration, preference, usage, all those things. And I suppose for context, you know, V Energy, they've only got 46% brand awareness, or half of New Zealand doesn't even know they exist, which is insane because
Yeah.
you think, and like same with McDonald's, you know, like you think everyone would know that they exist, but there's still those pockets of people wherever they may be that have no idea. So I think as a brand, it's important to always market as if people don't know what you do. So you've got to keep retelling that story of like who you are, what you do, what you're trying to achieve, the education behind it. And then, you know, sure, I mean, if you become a massive brand like Red Bull or something, like I'd probably be sitting in the marketing department being like, yeah, job well done. But I think like there's always more to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And things change all the time. Like we've just been through like COVID, and that's just turned everybody upside down. And now we're obviously seeing a little bit of an economic decline. So there's always the world, if you know, if it's not coming from you, the world sure as heck is going to put some new change in. So it's like adapting and stuff, like innovating, being an innovative product and always innovating, you know. So what if you could give some tips to people, say, that don't have a marketing department but might have an innovative product, and kind of thinking about, well, how do I go about this, as from like getting myself out there and all that? What kind of things would you recommend for people to do?
I think the biggest thing to start would be just knowing who your audience is and where they are. I think a lot of brands try and do everything all at once, and then you sort of, you know, like jack of all trades, master of none. So I think like figure out what you're trying to achieve. If you want to get brand awareness, then focus on activity that will help you do that. If you're a product and you want to get stock in store, then focus on what that would look like. But I think brands mainly need to focus on like who is your customer, where are they, and then what can you do to reach them. That's, I suppose, the most authentic way possible, because at the end of the day, we're humans marketing to other humans, right? And people like to feel that there are other people behind the brand that they're buying from. So a lot of people will buy a product and like, sure, maybe they go in the store that day and they see it, but chances are before that purchase happened. They saw you on a billboard, they went to one of your events, they saw an ad on Facebook, maybe they heard you on the radio, maybe they saw one of their friends drinking it. So I think there's so much that happens pre that purchase moment for someone in the consideration phase of buying from a brand. So I think it's really nailing what that kind of customer journey could look like, and like great if they end up buying your product, but it's more like all the steps in between to me that really matter and that brands should be focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes down to us, with all of the invention of AI and social media and all of these things which create a lot of noise in our lives, when when it comes back down to it, the thing that we still subconsciously need is that human connection. And to create human connection in a product is not easy.
No, it's definitely been challenging, I would say. Like we've obviously been, I say lucky, but I mean it has been thought out. I don't think anyone just lucks into something, right? And I mean, unless you win lotto, but you know, that's completely different. But I would say like, yeah, it feels quite lucky that we have been able to not only play in the space that we are with minimal competition in New Zealand, but also being able to realize that, you know, our community initiatives and our events and those kind of things is really what gets people excited about our product. And it's the same sort of thing. James Herman talks about it in his book, Future Demand. It's all about creating demand for people who don't know they need your product yet. So the people who are already buying your product, they're your existing customers, so you can harvest demand for them. But then it's also about creating future demand. So I don't know, if we do an event, right, it might be people who've never even heard us before, but maybe they just want to have a morning of like mindfulness, breath work, yoga, whatever. And then maybe 2 or 3 months down the track, once they start thinking, oh, I need to take better care of my brain, then they remember, oh, I went to that event. Arepa educated me about what the product is, what it does. So then suddenly we've created future demand from someone who didn't know they need us or didn't want us at the time that they found out about us. So I think like that's really important, is to always think about like what you're appealing to your current customer, but then also how do you talk to future customers who don't even know they need you yet.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Our products are so much about, it's not necessarily about the right now, it's just about being at the right time, sort of thing. So 100% agree with you on that. Cool. And what have you learned from like in the last little while of being at Arifa for yourself? Like going forward, is there anything in particular that you've kind of gone for your own, I guess, thinking about the product and how it's affected you and you know how you go about your life?
I would say probably the biggest thing for working for a brand as purposeful as Arepa is it has made me realize how important it is to believe in what you do. Like I feel like I market the product as if I created it. So I feel like I get so caught up in everything that we do, you know, the value we're trying to drive, what we're trying to achieve. And I think like that it really tells, especially from a marketing point of view, if you're passionate about what you're trying to market, it comes across in everything you do. And I think like that's now become, I would say, like my non-negotiable of, you know, if and when I do leave Arepa, like wherever I go to next, it's going to have to be such a cool company with such a purpose, because I've realized like that is where my passion lies as a marketer, and I'm not willing to settle for less. I also think from a marketing point of view, I've learned like taking risks and doing things that other people aren't necessarily doing is really good. Like everyone fails, right? So it's like, you know, that saying like fail fast, fail forward. As long as you learn something from what you do, like that's all, you know, that's what matters. And I think like for us at Aripa, the way I approached our marketing is, you know, pre-Aripa, I had no FMCG experience. And I know at the start I was like, oh God, like, am I going to be able to do this? Like, I don't understand product. I mean, I, you know, come from sort of a digital consultancy, like SaaS background. But I think if anything, it's like those marketing is always transferable no matter what you're marketing. But I think sometimes it takes that approach that no one else has taken to actually make an impact. So, you know, we don't really see many other products or brands similar to us or in the beverage category running their own events, doing community initiatives, you know, doing things like we do. And I think that's why we stand out so much. And like, yes, sometimes those ideas are terrifying on paper because, you know, you look around and you're like, oh God, no one else has done this. Like, is it going to work? But I think it's just being like, well, let's just do it and let's just see what happens. And if it doesn't work, then that's one more thing we add to the list that we'll never do again. And if it does work, then let's make sure we keep doing this. So I think that's been really, really important and valuable for me to learn, both in my role as marketing manager at Arepa, but also just in general, is just having the, I guess, bravery to take those risks. And I mean, I know a lot of that does come from like support within the company and obviously budgets and that sort of thing, but I always think there's little things you can do to test your theories or ideas that aren't necessarily going to be these crazy scary moments for the business, like, I wasn't trying to pivot the business strategy or anything like that. I was like, oh, what would a men's only mental health meetup at the office look like would that be a good idea? And something like that. Now we're 10 months down the track, we've done one every single month. We've had insane guest speakers. We've donated over $5,000 to the Mental Health Foundation. And that was just a random idea that I was like, I wonder if this will work. So I think it's just betting on yourself and backing yourself, that those kind of ideas may be crazy on paper, but in reality, if they pay off, the impact is huge.
Amazing. Oh, that is wonderful. Chanel, thank you so much for your time. There's lots of awesome, juicy moments of gold in there. So thank you very much for your time this morning, and best of luck with Arifa. It's a brand that I will follow, definitely. I love what you guys are doing. So thank you for being the change that we've needed in our mental health. And yeah, I'm sure everyone appreciates what you guys have been doing so far.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's been a massive journey for us over the last sort of few years. It's been a massive team effort. I mean, this kind of stuff doesn't get done by one person overnight. It's, years and years in the making of this kind of thing. So yeah, it's been super exciting to be a part of. So thank you for letting me talk about it.